The NBA is terrified that this is happening as the Milwaukee Bucks beat the Orlando Magic despite the referees' best efforts. We're going to break down this crazy game. They won in the back of Giannis, and this has big implications going forward for the Bucks. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, folks. But before we get into a quick reminder, if you're a part of the 83% who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Bucks content. Thank you guys for your continued support, and make sure to hit that subscribe button as we're on the road to 2,500 subscribers. But ladies and gentlemen, what a crazy game this was, and there's a lot of things to go over. We're going to dive into Giannis's performance tonight. He is the best player in the world. He is hopefully going to win MVP. But this was a very interesting game. Now, coming into the game, the biggest storyline was Paolo Banchero. He was making his, and he did make his first, start since October 30th when he went down with his injury. So it is good for the basketball and good for the NBA, good for basketball to see him back. But what a crazy game. Now, it was not the cleanest game by any means, but it is a game where your two stars need to show out. It was a game where the referees were really bad, and we're going to dive into the referees later, but what a game from Giannis, and Giannis completely won them this one. He went 3 for 10 from the free throw line, but despite that, put up 41, 14, and 4, and in a game that saw Andre Jackson Jr. struggle, in a game that saw a lot of the guys struggle. The bench players were okay. AJ Green obviously missed a few open ones, but the big, storyline coming in this game was, of course, Paolo Banchero, but from the Bucks side, how Chris Middleton was going to do, again, unlimited minutes coming off of the bench. He went 5 for 10, 1 for 5 from 3, had 11 points. He looked a little bit better. Still is not great, but he looked better coming off the bench and more comfortable. And then Gary Trent Jr. coming off of a really hot game where he went 5 for 5 from the field, 4 for 4 from 3, and did not miss. He missed. He missed, obviously, a couple shots this game. He wasn't great in this one, and he's a very streaky player. You're going to see sometimes where he plays really well. You're going to see sometimes where, of course, he has streaky games. But Chris Middleton, he looked a little bit better, and I think he's comfortable in that bench role for now. But getting back to the big conversation, Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best player in the world. There's no doubt about it. I've been saying it every game. And despite the referees' best efforts, specifically in the fourth quarter, and we all talk about, and there's a lot of discourse going around about how the ratings are down in the NBA. Now, whether you want to believe that's because they shoot too many threes, all these different things. I mean, the refereeing is crazy. From one, we can just look at the last, 10 seconds of the game where, the clock doesn't run and the clock stops running. So there's 5.5 seconds left. The game would have been over. They somehow managed to give the Magic just enough time, 0.4. You obviously need 0.3 to get a shot off. They give him just enough time to get a shot off, despite, if you all counted in your heads, it was well over 5 seconds. The game should have been over. The clock, it doesn't get started. Scott Foster, a lot of bad calls. It ended up being the Scott Foster show tonight, and that's what happened in the fourth quarter. But even the entire game, and it was a really bad, and people are really upset about the refereeing in this one. Scott Foster was really bad. He always screws over the Bucks. And despite that, they come out and they win. Dame and Giannis combining for 70, that's obviously insane. And that's what I'm saying. You do not need Dame and Giannis every single night to score 70, but games where your other role players are not playing well, Brook Lopez 2 for 5, Ajax 0 for 1, Taurean Prince 2 for 2. No one on the starting lineup besides Dame and Giannis were scoring in high volume by any means. And that has been kind of the story of the season. Their role players haven't been quite as good. It's why they're looking at acquiring some new role players, some new bench players. But the defense was solid, but it was an ugly win, and there's no doubt about it. But you're going up against a very good Eastern Conference rival in the Orlando Magic, and it is interesting because, and there's a few different things I want to go over. We'll get into Ajax a little bit, but the defense of the Magic was very intense. It was very solid, and this was simply a Giannis and Damian Lillard carry tonight. They carried the team to the win. Without them, obviously they lose, and that's the case most of the nights, but it's a different change of pace considering compared to the last game where AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr., a lot of guys stepped up when Giannis didn't have a 40-point game, even though he still played fantastic. He only had, he doesn't, against the Raptors, think about, he didn't really have a ton of points. And in last game against the Raptors, Giannis had 11 points or something like that. And then you had AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr. step up. Tonight, polar opposite. You have AJ Green and Gary Trent Jr. combined for 3 points as compared to last game where they combined for a ton. So it gets very, very intriguing. That being said, I do want to bring up something, and I'm curious to see what you all think about it in the comment section. Obviously, Damian Lillard, great game. Giannis Antetokounmpo, great game. Starting Ajax. Now, I'm a huge fan of Ajax. I think he's going to be very good going forward. And I do like Chris Middleton off of the bench. I think he plays better. I think he's a better fit for the team off of the bench. But it's intriguing to me because Andre Jackson Jr.'s, his value is defensively, on ball, point of attack defense, point of attack defender. We all know that. But the Bucks' defensive scheme right now is every single screen, whether it's a brush screen, whether it's obviously a normal screen, their plan is to switch it. So if they're switching every single screen, now obviously Ajax only played 13 minutes tonight, but if they're switching every single screen, I don't really see the point in having Andre Jackson Jr. out there if his main goal is to help protect Damian Lillard defensively, because obviously Damian Lillard's not great defensively. You have Andre Jackson Jr., who's a very good perimeter defender. So obviously, I discussed in the last video, his value is matchup based. Tonight, you're going up against a very solid Orlando Magic team. Now, Cole Anthony, they don't have any elite guards. You obviously have, Cole Anthony and, some other guys. But if you're going to switch every single screen, whether that's on Cole Anthony, whether that's on Anthony Black off the bench, there's not really much value for Andre Jackson Jr. because you're better off. The defense doesn't matter quite as much. And for a guy who prides himself on defense, and he is not going to score the ball, we've seen that all year. He hasn't taken more than like 5 shots in a game. It gets very interesting to me. And I'm intrigued. Again, his point of attack defense is Andre Jackson Jr.'s main skill. He's not going to do much on offense. So if you're switching every screen, you're better off having AJ Green out there, who is still a fine defender, but provides a lot more offense because he's one of the best shooters in the NBA. So just something I noticed, and it's interesting. I want to see what you all think about it in the comment section down below. But it was something I just noticed. And ultimately, Andre Jackson Jr., he's going to have his value. I'm curious to see how much longer he stays in the starting lineup. I think there's a world where they actually put Gary Trent Jr. back in the starting lineup and try to find some, balance there. Bobby Portis tonight had a very solid game. It was okay defensively. He's not good at all, but he's solid defensively. Plus 12, 11 points, 7 boards, and that's what he gives you at this point. And we know a trade could be coming surrounding Bobby Portis, could be coming surrounding Chris Middleton. But at the end of the day, that starting lineup, it looks good. I do think they need some upgrades, and even Brook Lopez was solid in the fourth quarter, hitting some clutch free throw. Obviously, wasn't able to hit both of them. But in a game where, Giannis and Dame, this is why you have these two guys. Your role players are going to have bad nights. And in those games against a very good team, this is a extremely good team. The Knicks also lost, so this is a huge win in the standings for the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it was a big win. We obviously love to see it as Bucks fans. Giannis is the best player in the world, 41-14, 4-3-2, 66% from the field. The only negative was, of course, his free throw shooting. But if Giannis and Dame can continue to do this, the NBA is in for, a treat here. And they need, the Milwaukee Bucks, they need to upgrade. They need to add. Now, whether that is a backup big, whether that's replacing Bobby Portis, replacing Chris Middleton, whatever it ends up being, I think at this point there might be a serious conversation to be had about really raising the floor of this team. Now, we've heard rumors about Jimmy Butler. I don't think that's going to happen. But maybe replacing Andre Jackson Jr. with someone who is more offensively minded. Now, let me clarify. You need defense next to Damian Lillard. I'm not saying someone who is a bad defender. Someone who is a really, really good defender, but also can provide a bit more. Just an upgraded version of Andre Jackson Jr. And obviously, Ajax is fairly young. He's still developing into his own player. But if you're just going to switch every screen, there's no point of having him out there. You're better off having someone who's, more sound offensively, despite, the defense being very good in Ajax and his point of attack defense. But that'll wrap it up. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on this. A huge win for the Milwaukee Bucks on the back of a lot of different players, Giannis, Dame, and ultimately, the Milwaukee Bucks win once again. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys later.